one choice, or either I either let it go and grow really long, or I keep it trimmed down. So,
all right. Well, it looks
I'm
good.
going for the trim mode.
Okay. Well, you look good with the beard, without the beard. Hey, it's still
Thank you,
works.
my friend.
Yeah. So
you
I
look well today, my friend, as well.
Yeah. I mean, I probably need a little trim too, but
And of course, my kitty has decided, as always, as soon as I turn, it's so funny, brother, as soon as I turn this camera on and I start talking, she joins me.
Yeah.
She lays by my side see it?
Oh yeah.
She
Well,
just
you
can't.
probably have a comfortable bed and everything as well, and I'm sure it's like cats love comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, whenever I sit here and do this show, she always climbs up and.
Well, I appreciate you joining me here this afternoon. I know it's a little bit earlier than normal, but we got a busy day today. We got our interview with Keith Elliott Greenberg here this afternoon, and then about another couple hours, or about 4:30 or whatever my time, 3:30 your time, we'll do our little Valentine's Day show.
Cool, man.
So, and I mean, I'm not going to say too much, but there might be some surprises when we get to our episode.
Reggie likey to play that.
I mean, I got some. If the person who I got in contact shows up at the time that we said for him to show up, or for that I told him to show up, I think this will get us some viewers, and I think this will get us. It'll get us our podcast talking a little bit, because
nice.
Not that I've scored the honey pot or anything, but I really feel like this guy, he's been on the show before, but this is the first time he's ever would be on the actual broadcast, because we've always done like pre-records and whatever. So I figure third time's the charm anyway.
I'm not going to tell you who it is. Brother, 220, 221, you know what to do.
Oh, absolutely. No, he's a friend of the show, and I think you'll love him. You probably will have heard of him as soon as you see him, but
cool.
Like anybody else. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm happy that you're a part of this interview today, because it's something that I've been wanting to do. Like this is the third year in a row that I've had Keith on my show, but third time we've chatted, and because he wrote the book. He wrote this cool book that I was telling you about AEW.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to talk about that, and plus other things. And I don't know, what's your knowledge about with Keith Elliott Greenberg, because he was the magazine guy when you were in the WWF.
The name doesn't sound familiar right out of the gate, but that doesn't mean anything, because there's a few days that might be missing in my life for certain chemical reasons. So, you never know.
Sure. Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's why I wasn't sure if you remember him or not, or at all, because he's been around. He looks the same. He's like, this guy doesn't age, it seems like,
Keith Elliott Greenberg, huh?
Yes, Keith Elliott Greenberg. He's definitely a big name in the industry. Like, he's not a wrestler at all. He's more like an author, a journalist, wrestling historian. But he's also done stuff for CNN, or he's done like a lot of different shows and stuff prior to wrestling. But the rest of the world knows him.
He's kind of a voice then in the wrestling business.
Well, yeah, kind of, but not like a commentary person. But he knows his stuff. He's like the Jim Cornette of wrestling.
Right. There's a few of those, not a lot of those guys. There's a few of those guys out there that deserve some respect, and so.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes, and he's definitely one of those guys, because honestly, I'm honored that just to be his online friend. I didn't think that he'd give me the time of day even 2 years ago. To be on or for me to invite him on the show, and for him to actually accept the invite. I'm still surprised, because it's like, who am I, but it's like, but I don't know if it's just because he liked what I was doing, or just, or he just figures it's a good publicity for him, you know, because he never asked like, you know, what like our viewership rates like that. So I'm kind of embarrassed to tell him sometimes.
You got nothing to be embarrassed about. Hey, brother, you're out there doing it, and that's what fucking matters in the end. You know, people can talk the shit all they want to, but you know, you're a guy you're out there fucking doing it, and you get enough props. I'll defend you all day long, brother.
Oh, and I appreciate that. I know we talked about it last week when we did the interview with Bruce Willis. I mean, or almost Bruce Willis with Eric. I don't want to give the wrong idea. Like we actually interviewed. I kind of use that a little bit, you know, as a tease though. You know, with the a poster that I made and everything.
Yeah.
Because I figure, well, maybe people think that it actually is him. You know.
Yeah, he was great, man. I really enjoyed the shit out of talking to him, man.
Mr. Eric, you know.
Yeah, Eric he was fucking great, man. I love. It's funny. I love talking to people that are in, you know, because he and I share kind of similar. After listening to his story, you know, we share similar backgrounds in terms of coming up in the movie industry. You know, I'm really a blessed guy because of the way I was introduced into the movie industry. I'm so fortunate that I was what you call, there's a sentiment called the Taft-Hartley. And I was Taft-Hartleyed into the movie business because they wanted me so bad because they didn't have anybody for no other reason. If for no other reason is they didn't have anybody to start shooting the movie I was in like the next Monday. And so they had to do what's called Taft-Hartley me in to the Screen Actors Guild.
Okay.
So I'm eligible for the Screen Actors Guild for life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can. And so no one ever has to worry if it's a SAG movie. All they got to do is put my name in, and I'm eligible because of Takedown. So I'm really lucky.
Wow. Okay.
You ever seen the movie I was in?
I actually was starting to watch it a little bit because I found it on YouTube. I couldn't find it. You know, they don't have it on.
So I have
it on Disney Plus at all.
Let me get it posted. I have a great. How do we? So they just did a 45th reunion, and no one owns this movie. It's really weird.
I thought it was a Disney movie.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
Disney gave up on it and released it to the world, and so I have but BYU digitally restored it.
Oh.
So it's badass. So I've got this movie, and I will put it I'll load it into my Dropbox. If you can figure out how to help me get it loaded up onto, you know, a site that we could load it up to on, how do we load it to YouTube?
Well, I mean, I could probably put it on my channel and see if people want to watch it on there. Because if you got a good copy, I mean, I'll send you my
great copy of it.
I'll send you my email address or whatever, and I'll text it to you.
And, you know what else I'd really like to put up on I'd like to figure out how to get out there I'd like to figure out how to get out there the interview with Mick Foley on Jimmy Kimmel about me.
Oh.
Do you know about this?
No. I mean, I do watch Jimmy Kimmel. I do watch him, but I don't. This is probably before we started getting together. This is probably a few years ago, I suppose, huh?
Oh, this is in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And it explains, it's Mick Foley confessing why he hated me, basically. No, I'm serious as fuck. It's exactly what it's about. It's Mick, because Mick thought I was lying to him about the rock star Steve Miller.
Okay.
You know who Steve Miller is?
Well, it's obviously not the singer you're talking about. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, that's who I'm talking about.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about the rock star, Steve Miller.
Okay. Yeah, that I do know. Yes.
Okay,
I do
so
know. Okay.
I will send you a link tonight to the interview, and then I would really like to get this thing posted out there so people can go watch this interview, because Steve Miller, if I've never talked to you about this, Steve Miller actually cost me my job in the World Wrestling Federation.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it was via Mick Foley that it cost me. So Mick Foley goes on Jimmy Kimmel to bury me to the world that I didn't know Steve Miller, because I told Mick that Steve Miller was going to come and do this gig with me on the WWF. He was supposed to come and do this gig with me in the WWF.
Okay.
And Mick thought I was lying to him, and therefore that's why Mick abandoned me, because he thought I was just a liar. And so he abandoned me because of Steve Miller. And then years later, Mick was really had a hell of a Hollywood popularity run.
Yeah.
He was a co-host on Jimmy Kimmel one night.
Okay.
And he went on Jimmy Kimmel, and he went on there when he realized Steve Miller was on the Jimmy Kimmel that show. He went on there with the absolute intention to bury me in front of the world.
That's amazing.
And so I'm not going to tell you anymore, but you need to go watch this interview.
Okay.
So I'll hook you up to it. There's a lot of my story, brother, that we haven't really talked a lot about, and there's some stuff that will be a lot of fun once like I said, once my movie starts coming out, because the Steve Miller thing is going to play an integral part in it. And I've been talking about it for so long. Everybody goes, "Yeah, shut up."
Would you think that this would be kind of like I know it's you showing what the World Wrestling Federation was like back in the 90s, but you could also say it's kind of like your documentary, kind of like your story, like you're also like your bio, kind of like.
It is. It actually really is, Frankie.
Okay.
It's the detail behind the scenes of what happened to me and why, because nobody knows, nobody cares, because unless was one of my, like, if you were a real huge fan of mine, and there's 10 or 20 people out there that were pretty big fans of mine.
Yeah, I became more of a fan of yours because of knowing you now. I've watched a lot of your matches. I've watched some of your YouTube, stuff that's on YouTube and everything. I mean, I'm always interested to learn more about you because, the fact that you're willing to spend time with me and do the show and everything, I mean, I couldn't ask for. I mean, I love my crew. I love everybody, but that's part of it. But the fact that I got you on and I know you say you're not, anybody, but you are somebody. You made your mark in the entertainment world and you did what you needed to do. And there's no shame for that, I have so much love and respect for you. You have no idea. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I really genuine. If I seen you in person, I would shake your hand. I'd give you a hug. I'd hang out with you.
Better give me a hug, or I'd be fucking pissed.
Absolutely. I'd say, "Holy shit, you're tall," but
the funny part about what you're saying is, like, Mama T is like this huge blues fan.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to hear. I really want Mama T to hear my music.
Oh yeah.
I think she's going to flip out because I'm a blues guitar player.
Oh, sure.
So eventually, you know what I'll do? I will also give you the link to my – so I'm going to send you some links after the show tonight. I'm going to send you the link to the Jimmy Kimmel interview, and then I'm going to send you the links to my entire album so you can go listen to it. And you're welcome – I would love it if you shared it with Mama T.
Sure.
So you're welcome to share it with people because I wrote the soundtrack for my movie before I actually made the movie.
Do you want me to put it on my YouTube page as well, or do you, or my TikTok or something, or just get more people out there?
Not quite yet. Okay.
Okay.
I want to wait until when the movie comes out, brother. then I want your full push, man. You can push the shit out of it because
Sure.
I think it's going to help us too. I think it'll help the show. And I think, I think you guys, once, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, I think once the movie comes out, I think you're going to want to do a different kind of segment with me on it because you're going to have a lot of questions once you see the movie. So,
well, I'm excited about that. I was going to talk to you about that privately, about what we can do to kind of put our, maybe put our own little name on it or spin on it to help.
Oh, we're going to do that, man. I'm in, Frankie.
Okay.
No problem, brother. I want you to, if this is going to help us and help the show, anything I can do to help further our show and, do that, I'm in. So.
Oh, awesome.
I do that. And just so you know, I do that for, man, I love doing this. And so the other shows I work on too, I do it with them as well. So.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later on. But right now we have our very special guest who is joining us for the third year in a row, because about 2 years ago, he made his Renegade radio debut around this time, I think about February of 2024. And then last year, he and I did an interview talking about his WrestleMania book. And now he's on again. And today we're going to talk just all things wrestling. And we got the legendary wrestling historian, Mr. Keith Elliott Greenberg. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, and Max, I spoke years ago, but it's nice to catch up with you now.
Where did we meet, Keith?
Well, I wrote for WWE's magazines from 1985 to 2007. So we definitely paths backstage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I can remember talking to you. You were talking about guitar playing. But that's a long time ago. So, now
imagine that. I was talking about playing the guitar.
Imagine that. So out of character for you.
Yes, I wanted to bring you guys kind of together too. That was kind of also the reason why I wanted you to come back on, Keith, because I figure, Max, has a good reputation around here as far as his legacy of his wrestling career and stuff, and I know he spent more time in WCW than he did WWF, but if you watch his stuff, if you've seen his matches and stuff, I mean, that this guy could go the distance, and if he would have got pushed a lot harder, he could have been just as big a superstar as probably as Triple H, maybe.
About that, because there are sometimes people, just because their timing or their place is off, that they don't hit that spot. Like, I also think about how you were in CWA, and had it been just another period, who knows, you could have been a regular in Japan because of that, and working the what was left of All-Star and World of Sport or joint promotions in England.
Yeah, no doubt. I it's funny. I can't tell you, Keith. That's so many times. There's a great song by the band Tesla called "Man Out of Time," and it's about actually Nikola Tesla and about him being a man out of time. And I felt like that on several occasions throughout my career, but that's just the nature of the business. You can't.
The nature of every business to a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just the nature of life in general, isn't it? So you have no choice but to accept it and figure out how to move on. And that's what I did, figured out how to move forward.
And now we're all here.
Yeah, now here we are doing Frankie Slosson's Power Hour.
Exactly.
That's right. That's an old school term from back in the day.
Right?
Well, Max, also, do you want to kind of give Keith kind of an update of kind of what you've been working on? Oh, where did he go? He disappeared there.
Uh-oh.
Are you still with us, Keith? Nope. Technical difficulties.
He tripped the light fandango somehow.
Oh, absolutely. He'll be back. I want you to tell him about your movie.
Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, we'll talk about it because he might know something about something behind the scenes that I don't know. You know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That'd be great.
So he was disconnected. Yeah, because I mean, I figure, you know, I mean, hey, I mean, this guy has helped out a lot of people too, and he knows a lot about the business. Obviously, he knows almost everything. I didn't know about CWA. I didn't know that. You know, so there you go. I'm learning stuff too. You know,
even though it's funny. There's multiple CWAs. So when I was in Memphis working for Lawler, that was called Championship Wrestling, and so it was the CWA. And then I went to Germany, and I was in Germany for 2 years, for 2 seasons. And that was the CWA. That stood for Catch Wrestling Alliance. Sure. So I was in Germany for 2 years. And that's what he's talking about, was what happened in Germany and England via, I believe, Tony St. Clair. And so, yeah. You're back, Keith. We lost you there for a second.
I am back, and I wanted to hear the beginning of the story now about Tony St. Clair.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the CWA, and I said it's funny because I've been in multiple CWAs. Because when I first broke in the business in Memphis, it was called the CWA. It was Championship Wrestling Association.
It was Championship or Continental?
Yeah, and it had morphed into, because Lawler and Jerry, the two Jerrys, got together and started the CWA, and it was based out of Memphis.
Right.
And so there's that one. And then when I went to Germany, the German Wrestling Alliance with Otto Wanz was called the CWA, which stood for Catch Wrestling Alliance. And so it was based out of there. And then after I left, I think Tony St. Clair took it over and promoted it heavily in England, right?
I'm not sure how heavily it was promoted, but I had heard, you know better than I.
Well, you know what? When I left the business, thank you. But when I left the business, I'd had enough. And so when I left the business in 97, I believe it was, is when my last match was in Vienna, Austria. That was it. I packed up my wrestling boots and I was
became
done.
a normal person.
Yeah, I did. I went out into the real world then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was too early for you when, remember Otto Wanz in the early 90s, I think, was trying to do these music videos, but he was a little too late with those.
Yeah, and it's funny because then I come on board. He was doing the Young, Strong, and Healthy.
Young, Strong, and Healthy, yeah.
Right. That was right before I got there. And I had to threaten him to do my music stuff because he didn't want to do it. And here's a wrestler who can actually play and do this. But then, you know what persuaded him?
What?
Money. Because when I started to do my gimmick, the Germans and the Austrians loved my gimmick. They loved me playing the guitar. And so the houses immediately got better. And so I said, then fuck you, I'm not going to play my guitar. And I'll just send my guitar and stuff home. And they went, oh, no, Buff, don't do that. We will play the music and have a good time. And I said, all right, then, get your head out of your ass. And then we ended up doing it. And, it went really well. I mean, he had the best season he'd ever had in Bremen because he allowed me to play before my matches during that whole era. And so, that's how he got into it. But yeah, he was trying to make music videos, then he stopped, and then I came along and reinvigorated it, and he hated it. So I had to literally beg him to, I wasn't begging, I had to swerve him into getting, to come and do the musical thing.
Wow. It's really, again, those are those it's what we were discussing before. You know, it's like if two ships miss each other, if they see each other and connect with each other, something great can spring from that.
Yep, it's so true. And that's what happened with me. Like when we were in Hanover that year, it's what there were quite a few of the wrestlers themselves. Like Tony St. Clair wasn't particularly a big fan of me playing the guitar. They kind of pushed against me being that because I had to practice during the day and they couldn't get their naps, in the middle of the day behind the chutes and plots.
Living in a caravan, am I correct?
Pardon me?
Aren't you living in a caravan over there?
Yeah, I was living in a trailer, so we all lived in trailers, and I had to practice. And in order to practice, I had to practice through the PA system, and my practice time impeded on their naps, and so it pissed them off. But it only pissed them off until it started to work, and the houses started to get big, Yeah. And we didn't make any more money in terms of like they gave us more money in our pay, but when the house goes from 200 people a night to 1,000 to 1,500 people a night, we were all selling pictures and T-shirts and stuff like that. So now these guys, we started to roll in the dough because now you got 1,500 people to sell your picture and your T-shirt and sign autographs for, and shit got really good. It turned out really good. And so then they became a little bigger fans of what I was doing because the money started helping things. And it's a hell of a lot easier to wrestle in front of 1,500 people than it is to wrestle in front of 200 people.
Yeah. Now, should I could just spend this entire podcast listening to your CWA stories? Are we supposed to be talking about something else?
Well, I kind of did have some headlines or some what they call bookends or whatever, like about what I want to talk about or whatever. But I figured to have Max on here because he's part of my crew. He's part of my Renegade radio crew. So I figured this would be kind of special to have him on. I wanted him to talk about one more thing that he's working on. To let you know about it, and then we'll talk about your book because I really want to talk about the book because I'm really fascinated with the AEW book. And then we'll talk about a few other things, and then that'll be it.
I want to hear what. Is it okay? I'm calling you Max. That's how
I prefer Max, actually. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So, did you know about me shooting the behind-the-scenes movie?
I did not know that. I only knew about you. I first saw you in WCW. And then, of course, I remember you as Man Mountain Rock because my father's favorite wrestler was Man Mountain Dean. And so, and then you could really play guitar. Like it wasn't a gimmick guy playing the guitar.
Right.
So it got everyone's attention.
Yeah, and the irony is it was also my worst kiss of death because I pissed Jim Johnston off, and once I pissed him off and didn't have him in my corner, it made my life difficult, to say the least. No, I asked Vince if I could, at the time, Road Rules was really popular on MTV, and it was the first reality television show. And when I saw that, I immediately said in my own brain, God, that's what's interesting about wrestling is the behind the scenes shit. So I wanted to shoot a behind the scenes movie in the wrestling business. So I went to Vince and asked him if I could. I was going on what ended up prophetically being my last tour in the WWF, which was a European tour. And I knew it was going to be the last time I would get to play my guitar publicly in the WWF, or so I thought. And so I asked Vince if I could carry my camera and shoot a behind-the-scenes movie. And he said yes. Wow. And so I carried my camera in the dressing room behind the scenes for what it was called the Full Metal Tour. And so I carried my camera with me. And it's now been 30 plus years. Actually, it's exactly 30 years that I shot this movie, and I passed it over to somebody else to take care of it and put it out because it's way too attached to me.
Right.
Personally. So I've handed it over to somebody else to finish it, and it's about to come out. So that's what Frankie's talking about, is if you knew about the movie.
So it is coming out.
Unless the guy completely folds and sells the farm, which I don't see happening. He's pretty excited about it. I'm pretty sure it's gonna come out in the very near future.
Okay, well, gives us something to look at this. I've spent this whole time just listening to you, and it's almost like I'm here. Well, I am a fan. So I'm here as a fan, and I'm just listening to your stories.
And I will shut up now because that's really not what I don't think Frankie intended. But
it's been pretty good for me so far.
Okay, good. I don't want to offend you in any way. So
no, right.
We need to pass the floor over to you because I want to hear about your book, and I want to hear about your association with the AEW as well. So I look forward to hearing about your career. So I'm going to pass it all over to you now, brother.
Well, I tell you what, if you don't know, everybody out there, about before the holidays, about November or so, or October. Oh yeah, about October. You keep coming. You keep going out every time I will talk to you all the time. So I don't mean to do that. But anyway, it came out before the holidays, or around the holidays, and it's a book about the first 6 years of AEW. The company that wasn't supposed to last, right? Everybody kept saying that.
Well, those were some of the projections. Yes.
Yeah. Well, look what happened. The company is still alive and well. And what's cool about this is that you have your name on it, but you also had the name of All Elite Wrestling on it too. Was this kind of like a joint production of something you guys planned a long time ago?
It was, and I didn't expect it. It was one of the books that they actually came to me, and I'm like, wow, I guess there's positives and negatives about hitting a certain age. The negatives are you're getting older. The positives are, I guess, if you've treated people well, some people like you. And so, AEW came to me and they said, in particular, Adam Hopkins, who's the PR head over there, said, I've put your name in the, out there if you are interested in doing a book about the first 5 years of AEW. It's a coffee table book, but we'd like you to write it. And, I'd been following AEW. I'm a wrestling fan. So I follow WWE, and I've been following AEW since the rumors of its formation started. And so it was pretty exciting to be, and the history was still unfolding, to be right in the middle of it as it was occurring.
Oh, man. And it makes me excited because it's like, I got to go to one AEW event thus far. Because they don't come up to our area much at all. They don't come up to North Dakota or anything like that. I don't know why. They could. We got Grand Forks. We got Fargo. We got some venues. They could do it, but they don't. I don't know why. They always go to Minneapolis, and that's it. Or Sioux Falls, and that's it. I figured now that they got 2 shows with Dynamite and Collision, that at least with one of them, maybe we'd have a chance, of selling an arena, because we got the Ralph Ingleson Arena in Grand Forks. We got the Alaris Center. We got the Fargo Dome, in Fargo. Plenty of space to hold a wrestling event, for crying out loud. But anyway,
listening right now.
Yeah. The thing about it is, like, I've been to one event, and that was at the Target Center. That was when they had full gear there in 2021, because originally it was supposed to be in St. Louis. Did you ever figure out why they changed it to Minneapolis at the time?
Oh, I wasn't involved in that. I know who I could call who would probably know, but he's busy with other things. He'd be
sure.
me about.
Well, no, the reason why, because it's like, I think maybe it had to do with COVID still, maybe, or something, or maybe just a booking. Because things change. I was excited when I found that out that they were going to be in Minneapolis, because I figured I'd ask some people who normally always say no to me about going to events far away, even though we're only a few hours away from Minneapolis, where I live. And they finally agreed and said yes. And I bought everybody tickets and everything, and paid for the hotel, and we went and had a good time. This is that night that Hangman won the his first AEW World Championship.
Exciting, yeah. There's a very exciting time, and it has a reflection on what we're currently watching on AEW, because this run is very different than Hangman's first run, but cumulatively their storytelling harks back to that, and so you were there for a pivotal moment.
Oh, absolutely, and the whole card was great. I mean, it was a 4-hour event, and one thing I will definitely say, compared to how WWF and WWE and all that used to, how they put their pay-per-views together currently, I actually prefer the way AEW does it, because AEW is not afraid. They're not afraid to take it up to that level.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are very divided on which company is better, and then there's an awful lot of people who can appreciate what they gather from each. So, I watch the Royal Rumble. Like every major wrestling show I watch, I had positives to say about it. I had some criticisms, but I enjoyed it, and we're wrestling fans. So, it's great to have competition.
Oh yeah, competition always brings out the best in everybody. And no matter what, I always truly believe, and this is something that I always will believe, because it seems like even when I was there and looking at the way the set designs were and all that, to me, AEW is like, a combination of old school WCW meets the Attitude Era.
Well,
that's what I see.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Max.
I was going to say that's what I see anyway. Is maybe somebody else, maybe you see it totally differently, but that's how I see it anyway.
Well, I will say that Tony Khan personally told me there are definitely nods to WCW as well as the World of Sport era in England. That's why he is on both the TBS networks in the United States and ITV in the UK. So he was aware of what existed before, and he's a historian himself. So, that's not an absurd thing to say. I also think that, the Attitude Era combined a lot of different styles, because that was influenced by ECW, which had luchadors, and they had, Japanese strong style, and they had death matches. And, that bled into the Attitude Era. So, what you're saying is a very accurate observation.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what makes me love it, because, not that I want to see everybody get bloody and all that stuff every time, but it's like, but here's an example of what I'm talking about for those that are kind of lost that are watching right now. We had War Games, right? We had the AEW's version of War Games just recently, and we had WWE's version of War Games. The AEW version was way better.
There would be people who would argue the opposite. It doesn't matter. If we're engaged and we're watching and there's dialogue, it's good for wrestling, and it's good for all of us as wrestling fans.
That's what I was saying as soon as I knew that AEW was getting started, because, all it is more wrestling, and it gives the people who are in competition, when they see what's going on, a chance to make their product better. And so it forth that we get a better product in whatever we're watching,
Yeah.
Basically pretty much what you just said. But I don't know, Max, do you watch AEW at all, or do you
I have been, it's so funny, because I just removed myself from the business in so many ways. I actually stepped away from it because I figured if I ever decided to go back, it would be like a breath of fresh air for me. And I just have never, I've never, I'll be honest, I've never seen an AEW event.
Oh boy.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm not, I wished I could honestly say to you, I knew about it, but when I quit the business, I really quit the business.
Yeah. And there are people who do that. And then I guess that's healthier than people who quit the business and they're always pining for a way back and they never get back.
Yeah, that's what Keith, that's exactly what I refused to do. You know, I wasn't going to be that guy. Partly, but then it was easy because I was pretty obviously really well hated within the business, so it was easy for me to not pine my way back in. You know, it happened quite naturally, and I died that death quite honestly.
Do you think those people still hate you, the ones who are alive?
Oh yeah, they have no love lost for me. Yes.
So I think he's wrong by saying that. I think people would actually know how to live and let live, you know, so to speak. I think even Mick Foley would probably forgive you.
Well, honestly. I don't feel that. Now Mick Foley's different. Mick Foley, I don't feel that way about Mick Foley, and never have. It was just Mick Foley's choice to estrange me. So I never ever felt that way about Mick. I've always loved Mick, and Mick, I have nothing but an incredible soft spot for Mick in my heart. And I've heard Mick talk enough about me that I think he feels the same way.
Mm. He's also a decent human being, so I would.
Yes. Which is kind of unusual. You know, there are some people in the wrestling business that aren't exactly very good human beings, and I'll leave the names out. There's no.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They know who they are.
Well, that's the thing about it. Like, you know, like when we watch like AEW and stuff, you know, like, you know, they have created so many new superstars of people who they brought from basically from almost every realm of the indies that they could find, you know, and to create this ultimate company. I mean, it's like normally you find people from other federations other than Chris Jericho, but you find people from other federations that were, you know, wrestling and stuff. But I feel like they really cared more about the independent label, and they found when they first started, and they're still doing this to this day. But like, you know, when they first started, it was all about trying to find people that will wow everybody, and even
a guy like Orange Cassidy, he would have been relegated to the indies for his entire career and kept his full-time gig. You know, a guy like MJF was desperate to get in there. You know, there were so many, you know, tag teams that, you know, they would just work, like guys like Private Party. They were known on the indies. You know, let's look at somebody like Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale, you know, and those people are stars now in AEW. And then you have people who came from WWE like Swerve Strickland and Mercedes Moné and Ricochet, and even, you know, Tony Storm. They're much bigger stars in AEW. And again, that's the beauty of the business when people have, or competition, when people have the ability to shuttle from one place to another.
You know who I think has really become a really big star over the course of joining?
Who's that?
Darby Allin. Oh, that guy. I mean, holy shit! You know. What impresses you about a guy like Darby Allin?
The fact that Darby Allin is such an unconventional guy who has such a mainstream forum that it forces people to kind of stretch their brains a little bit. And I didn't think I liked this kind of wrestling, but I can't get enough of Darby Allin.
God, this guy should be. I mean, with all the risks that he's taking, I mean, Mick Foley is, you know, will always be the hardcore legend, but we got so many people following in his footsteps. I mean, this guy should be dead by now, you know, with all the stuff that he's done.
Well, I'm happy that he isn't.
Exactly. That's why I'm just like, he's just such a risk taker, and just like, he ain't afraid of anything, you know. So when it comes to like this wrestling in general, like what kind of style do you prefer, like on a normal basis?
You know, I consider myself a versatile wrestling fan, so I wouldn't say, oh, I only like death matches, or I only like comedy matches, or I only like technical matches. You know, I like the presentation. It's all a matter of the personalities in the ring, the way they tell a physical story, and the way it intrigues me into watching again. So I'm not going to confine myself to one particular style.
Well, like with MAXX, he was one of those big guys, that were in the industries, and he had a few matches with Vader, and only wish that that WCW would have let them have a real run, because I think they could have had some classics there.
I mean, MAXX and Vader, that stuff could have gone on. That could have been done in the US. It could have been done in Europe. It could have been done in Japan. I mean, fans would still be talking about those matches today all over the world.
What do you think there, Max? Do you agree?
As I'm listening to you guys, I think, one of the hardest things for me about the wrestling business is, by the time I got to the end of my career, I realized that my physical health was going to impede my future, simply because, like anybody else, I amateur wrestled, all the way through college. So I left a college amateur wrestling career, and I was tore up. I'd blown both of my knees, my elbows, my shoulders. And then I went and did a professional wrestling career for 11 years. And so everything that I geared myself towards, and in fact, the reason I went to college was to prepare myself for the eventuality that someday I would have something to offer the wrestling world behind the scenes. And I think out of all the things that's the most discouraging for me about the wrestling business is that no one ever took advantage of, and I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I've done some pretty smart things in my career. Like, I'm very proud of this movie because it was 30 years ahead of its time. And I was always sad that not one guy in the wrestling business said, boy, Max would be great as a producer. I have a degree in television and film. And no one ever picked up on that in me. And maybe, I guess I have to take the blame myself, that I must be a very, very difficult man to work with, because I have never in my entire career gotten a call from the wrestling business beyond. In fact, it's funny, I heard Bruce Pritchard say something about this once. He goes, yeah, Max wanted to have a career behind the scenes. Well, that's unusual, because gosh, wrestlers don't want jobs behind the scenes in wrestling, do they? And so I guess I never understood that part of the business, that not one of the guys that I met and worked with and was friends with ever saw that part. And so it's one of those things that I ended up just accepting and moved on without the business, because I just never got those calls. No one ever called me and said, hey, Max, you got any ideas? You want to come and do this? You want to be a part of behind the scenes? You want to produce? You want to, direct, write music? All
wow. Yeah.
So anyway, that was what was always hard. The hardest part for me. I would have loved to work with Vader. I think Vader and I could have torn it up all over the world.
Yeah.
Leon and I were good friends offset. So we could have beat the shit out of each other, and people would have thought we were killing each other.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, they would have been good matches.
You would have been killing each other and trusting each other at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. That's why Vader and I would have been so good together, because we would have trusted each other as big men. And so the bumps that we could have taken for each other would have been spectacular. And the funny part is, Harley tried his ass off to get Eric Bischoff to. In fact, Harley, I went up and down the road with Harley and Vader, and Harley tried his ass off to get Bischoff to let me and Vader have a run, and they just wouldn't do it. They just hated me so badly behind the scenes. I've said this before. Bill Dundee, to my face, and Mick Foley and I were riding down the road on our way to St. Charles, Louisiana, and I'll never forget, he looked at Mick Foley and I, and he said, how do two ugly fuckers like you think you could ever get over as baby faces? And that was the battle. That was the battles we dealt with that kind of that kind of ignorance in somebody, you know, in the management of who cares if it makes you money? Who cares if people come through the door to see it? Who cares what we look like? You know,
maybe sometimes looking a little unconventional. I mean, it's the wrestling business. Maybe that's the allure that you have.
Yeah, I never understood that, Keith. Quite frankly, that was the part of that's part of the PTSD that I still have bestowed upon me by the wrestling business for that exact reason. I thought I'd landed in the perfect business to be a freak, and quite the opposite happened to me.
No, he's definitely not a freak to us. I mean, I'm so honored to have Max be a part of my podcast. You have no idea how big of a deal this is to me. You know,
well,
just because he's very professional, very professional. Anyway, so with the AEW book for this book is All Elite. What what do you want people to discover, you know, about this for people who haven't checked it out yet?
Well, I look at it as a snapshot of AEW's early history, and the photos are spectacular, and you know, and the art direction's beautiful, and this would not be the same book without those two factors. And I wish I had the list in front of me of all the photographers who contributed to this book, because, you know, my name's on the cover. They're acknowledged in the book, but, you know, people should really study those names because they're some of the best photographers in general. But, you know, from my point of view as the writer, I wanted people to just understand that we're all wrestling fans. And at our core, there is a part of us that can relate to Tony Khan and a part of Tony Khan that relates to us. Now, he had resources most of us will never have, but he still had the drive to bring this dream he had since he was a child to fruition. And how these storylines, how these characters, how these rivalries came about, you know, that's something that hasn't always been disclosed. And I feel that's what the book reveals. Now, there are people will say, well, there was a lot of like dirt, you know, dirt that isn't in the book. And that's true. It's a collaboration with AEW. And it's not a gossip book. It's a celebration. And I don't feel the book is compromised whatsoever by not dwelling on a couple of circumstances that everyone's read about on the internet.
I'm just glad that they let you be a part of it, because I don't know who else. I mean, there's a lot of authors out there. There's a lot of people who are historians and stuff. But I mean, I think they scored big time by having you be a part of this project, because you definitely know your stuff, and with your history of just doing everything that you've done in the industry and beyond, you know, it's like, who else would you talk to about it, you know?
I mean, look, I'm not going to say I'm the only one who could have done it. I'm just grateful that I'm the one who was selected.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but Keith, I'm going to give you some credit right here, man, because, you know, the business is, there's something inherent about guys like you, that you have this incredible knack of being able to be a part of the boys, which is not easy to fucking do. You know, you've got that, you know, you're one of those gifted people who knows how to deal with the boys and be accepted, because you know as well as I do, fucking 10 years ago, when kayfabe was alive and well, you couldn't get past the fucking doorstep of anything.
Yes. Thank you.
You know that, and so guys like you, and I love the folks like you, because they're few and far between. You know, Dave Meltzer is one of those guys who was able to pull that off, and Bill Apter. You know, there's a handful of guys who have risen in the ranks, who's not one of the boys yet is exactly what the boys love, and you're one of those guys. and it's obvious in the work you do. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel like you cracked that? What was it about you that, I mean, of course the WWF gave you a badge. That don't mean shit. You know, the badge just says you can get behind the stage. That doesn't mean that I have to talk to you.
Right.
How did you crack that, Keith? What gave you that confidence? Because it takes a lot of confidence, and I'm sure it probably wasn't easy. Maybe you had some people be really fucking mean to you and do some.
Sure.
You know,
I expected that. I'm an outsider in a very close society, so I went in anticipating that. And, there were certain old timers who gave me advice, and there were certain places I didn't tread. And to this day, if I'm in catering backstage somewhere and I'm talking with two guys who are wrestling that night, and then they start laying out their match, I stand up and walk somewhere else. That's not my thing to listen to. That's between them, and I respect the sanctity of their art form. And, you know, I really try to adhere to that.
That's so great for an insider to know. But even then, there's something about you and your personality that I wish. I mean, there's no way to define it easily because it's not an easy definition. But you're just one of those people that's what's beautiful about those few people like yourself that make it into those realms. It's an amazing feat. And you've done it really, really well, and you should be complimented highly because it's not an easy thing to do. Is there any? Who were the? I'm curious. Forgive me. I'm curious who the old timers were that took care of you because obviously they gave you good advice.
Well, there were old timers who advised me. Pat Patterson advised me, and Freddie Blassie advised me. Those are two pretty good old timers to listen to. And to a much lesser degree, Gorilla Monsoon gave me a few tips on how to function backstage. And, you know, and then as time went, I got to know wrestlers. I got to know Randy Macho Man Savage and his brother Lenny Poffo. And I got to know Bret Hitman Hart. And later on, I got to know Mick Foley. And, you know, the Dudley brothers, and those were guys even if I wasn't going directly to them for advice, I would listen to them. And I would hear what they said about others. And I would hear them talk about the concept of respect. And I would try to absorb that as best I could.
Is there a particular, is there like a moment in your career when you were doing something, writing something, where you walked away from it and you felt like, I think I've figured this out? Is there a particular moment or a series of moments where you felt that way?
I think it took time. I think at first, for a long time, I felt like, I hope I'm doing this right. And then there was a point where I felt, okay, I think I have the formula. But then I also had to acknowledge that formula changes. And so if I just stick to this one formula, it will not be relevant in 6 months. So keep my eye, like they say, it's a cliche, you know, keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Well, the one last thing that I wanted to talk about, you know, is I'm sure you probably have talked about this in other podcasts, but I want to kind of hear your input because we talk about this a lot on our podcast, you know, about all the changes in the current world of wrestling and everything. And what the hell's up with all these gouging price gouging for WWE? Why is everything so much more expensive than it used to be when it comes to going to a show?
For some reason, KO has excluded me from all those meetings when those topics are discussed. So I'm not privy to that information.
Fuckers, I mean, they ought to be talking to guys like you, that's for sure.
Well, you could say I'm sure there is a dialogue with fans somewhere, but that's not the part of the business I've ever focused on. Obviously, we all have feelings about that. We're all fans, and nobody wants to see fans not able to get in. And by the way, that translates into regular mainstream sports. I was to a New York Knicks game. I remember, my father taking me to wrestling and, major league sports. And I think to myself, boy, if I had a young kid and a couple of young kids now, I wouldn't be able to pull that off.
What was the Super Bowl last night? What was it? They're talking about how expensive the food was. I mean, they have a burger that's $180 for crying out loud.
It's really something. I mean, that is major league sports. You would think there would be a backlash, or maybe they just keep raising the price and they only get fans with, who have the resources in there. I'm not really sure that strategy, because I've always thought with my heart and not with a profit motive.
Sure. Well, we appreciate having you on here.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead, Max. Go ahead,
Frankie. Let me ask Keith another question. One last question, Keith.
Sure.
So you brought up some amazing old timers and Pat Patterson, Gorilla, and Freddie Blassie. Speak, if you would, on
Arnold Skoland. Sorry, Arnold Skoland was another one I just remembered.
Nice. Well, you've got the old timers that matter, boy. It's not called the gorilla position for no reason.
Exactly.
So to have him in your back pocket, that's a
I wouldn't go so say back pocket, but they were willing. They trust enough to share.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Of course, I get that. I mean, but in that sense, you when I say back pocket, you obviously won them over enough for them to trust you.
Right.
And that's fucking huge in the rest. That's all that matters is that respect you're talking about.
Right.
What's the difference? Could you, and maybe there is no difference. If you could say, if there's a difference, if you were to go into a dressing room 20 years ago versus going into a dressing room now, and the difference in the wrestling business, not in front of the camera, because it really hasn't changed that much in front of the camera, has it? I mean, it's still basically, it's still all about the bodies and, looking good. And that stuff is pretty universal. How has the business changed in your eyes in the last 20 years from where it was to where it is now?
Are you talking about backstage?
Yeah.
I'll say I talk about this a lot with my friends. Back in the day, it was mainly men in the dressing room. And the women there might be one woman's match on the card, but women were not as big a part of the backstage scene as they are today. And I think that female influence has had a beneficial effect on the business. For one thing, now a lot of the stars, the male stars, are dating or married to the female stars. And so there's not this kind of knuckleheaded behavior like there was in the old days when the guys go out at night. Because imagine if Seth Rollins misbehaved and Becky Lynch caught wind of it. Seth Rollins would be in pretty sad shape. And I think that's good. I think it sensitizes the males backstage. It builds respect. I think it transfers in front of the curtain where there's more respect for the female talent. And, it creates a far fewer headaches for the people running the show.
It's funny. It almost sounds like you're saying that the word rat has been almost removed from the equation, because back in the day, 20 years ago, arena rats were a huge part of the equation for most of the juvenile behavior that was going on behind the scenes.
Very true.
And I haven't been in a dressing room for 30 years, so I have no idea. But I'm glad I'm so glad I asked that question, because that's the part of the wrestling business to me where it has evolved so dramatically. And quite frankly, to see the misogyny end, it's literally ended because the women are such an integral part. I'm so glad I asked that question, because I don't think it could come truer from the horse's mouth than somebody that is in the background writing about it all the time. So thank you for your assessment of that.
And thank you for asking about it. I'm glad to share that with the world. And, let's appreciate how the business has evolved as society has evolved.
Yes, absolutely.
And we appreciate you, Keith, again for being a part of the show, and having Max along too. I hope this was a good chance for you guys to see each other again, because I don't know when the last time you guys ever talked and whatever. And
talk to you finally. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I feel the same way. It's such an honor to get to know you, Keith, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and hanging out with us, and it was I really enjoyed this a lot.
So did I. And Frankie, thanks for bringing us together, and I'm forward to next time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you, and we will see you next time, and we'll see you guys a little bit later for the actual podcast. So we'll be back.
I need to jump. Right, talk to you guys soon.
All right, bye. Just stay on there. I'm going to end the stream right now here. And we'll see you guys for the podcast in a little bit too.